Okay. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining our latest CA Endeavor Community Webcast. This morning we'll be led by Susie Robson from our usability team, who will be talking to us about CA Technologies usability studies and how you can get involved. If you have any questions along the way, please use the Q&A box in the lower right corner of your WebEx window. If you don't see that box, click on the question mark icon in the upper right, and it will open for you. And with that, go ahead, Susie.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming. So as he said, this is about usability studies, helping us to help you. So I'll get started right now. How do I forward through this? Oh, never mind, I got it. Okay, so basically what I kind of want to talk about is what is a usability study? Why should you sign up for a usability study? What to expect when you do sign up, and how to sign up. So a usability study can also be called the usability test. There's other names for it. It's part of the user experience world. It's an ever-changing name here, but basically it's probably the most important technique that we use in UX to evaluate a product by testing it with users. I think it's crucial because it shows us how people are trying to use something, not just them telling us what they think or what the problem is. It's actually watching them, and it's always fascinating to me. It focuses on measuring a human-made product's capacity to meet its intended purpose. It's also called computer-human interaction, which I think is pretty obvious. And ideally, it should be done in person, but we know that in this day and age, that's not always possible. And we do have things like WebEx to help us do it remotely. So that's a perfectly valid option. If I could, I would do it in person, but I would rather do it via WebEx than not do it at all. Usability testing is also iterative. So we never just test it and then think that we've figured everything out, just doing it one time. We do it over and over again, and there's really the only end to it is when we stop finding something new. And it's kind of like the old shampoo bottle that says lather, rinse, repeat. When do you stop repeating? And you just know. One usability study would consist of maybe 3 to 8 users individually. Each user has their own session. And again, ideally, it would be people who fit the persona that we have agreed upon for that product and that feature that we're testing, or that situation. We give them a set of tasks. Each person does the same set of tasks. I like it to be very controlled if possible. Most of the time, there are times when I'm a little looser, but we give them tasks to do, and we watch them either via WebEx or in person. We watch them to see how they try to complete those tasks, not if they can. I kind of don't care if they can, unless that's the goal that we're trying to find out. But it's really to see how people approach the problem, what do they click on, where do they go, how do they navigate through, that sort of thing. And because we're using more than one person, we use several so that we can see patterns. Let's say I test with 8 people. Do all 8 people have the same problem? If so, that's a high priority thing that we need to fix. If only one of 8 has a problem, it may be a lower priority, depending. Sometimes it's just one of those, so obvious, of course we need to fix that, even if only one person ran into it. But usually we want to try to find patterns of what works, of what doesn't work, what's easy, what's not easy, because we not only want to know what to fix, we also want to know what to keep the same too, so that's important. During the usability studies, we also have observers, and that would be the development team, could be marketing, sales, any stakeholder that is invested in the product, hopefully is observing the usability studies, and they're taking notes. And those notes are what we use as the information going forward. This is not a CA graphic. This is, I pulled from Google, just so you know, but this is a typical usability lab. We don't have one here yet, but we would use a conference room if we had somebody come in person to sort of simulate this. So the gentleman sitting at the computer is the usability participant. He's the user, and he's going through the system. The woman sitting next to him is the facilitator, or somebody like me, who is helping them, giving them the task to do, watching what they're doing. On top of the monitor is a little webcam. So we would be recording this, and we would be trying to capture his facial expressions. Is he confused or not? That sort of thing. I don't know if you can tell, there's also a camera hiding in the tree. And I believe there is a camera that took this picture. So on this other side of the wall, there's probably a camera attached there. And there may even be a camera in the ceiling focused on the keyboard or his hands. You'll notice the mirror in the back of the room. That's not a real mirror. It is very similar to a police interrogation room. It is called a one-way glass or a two-way mirror. So on the other side of that mirror would be the stakeholders or the developers who are watching and taking notes. So this way they're not making the participants feel very nervous, but they're still able to observe this. So this is what typically happens during a usability study. And just to be clear, there are some things that usability testing is not, because I know that we have validation partners, we have end of sprint reviews with those validation partners. The product managers reach out to users as well. They have a different goal in mind. They have a different objective. For usability, one thing that we don't do is we don't test the user. That's very clear. We're only trying to see how they try to use our product so we can figure out what needs to be improved or what needs to stay the same. We don't ask, do you like this? Or do you understand this? At least I hope we don't ask that. It's really just watching, like I said, or maybe asking different types of questions, but mostly it's us watching people use the system. And there's times that maybe we can use our information along with maybe marketing, survey responses, or the product manager's information, merge them together to get a bigger story. But we would never just ask those questions on our own. There are some exceptions. I might do surveys here and there, but that's not our final thing. That's really just sort of a way to help us find information to figure out what to test or what to prioritize. There are other things that we as UX people do, and so just to put that out there, we do design studios. And that would be just something that we would do with the stakeholders here. We wouldn't necessarily have a user involved in it, but we would do contextual inquiries where we would actually come to you and watch you at your office, watching you do your work, see what interruptions you have, what other things that you do during the day, what are the triggers that cause you to use our products. Is it just part of your normal workflow, or if it's one of our testing tools, did you receive an email or some sort of alert that that makes you need to use one of our testing tools or something like that. We also create journey maps, user workflows. We do brainstorming sessions and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of things we do. I just think that usability studies are the primary methodologies that really help us improve our products. So why should you sign up? We can't do this without you. We can test with our coworkers here and get some information, and maybe that's fine for a little bit of stuff, but we don't have the same experience that users have, and we don't have the same workflow. We don't have a lot of the same things that we need to find out. So your input is invaluable. We really need to watch you to figure out how to improve our stuff. It helps us to develop products that are intuitive, easy to learn, easy to use, and hopefully are useful. If it's easy to use and it's not useful, it's still a waste of our time. So we want to identify all of these things, not just one. And it also helps us to understand the needs of your company. And again, this can only help you do your job better. If we can make your job easier so you're focused on your job, not in how to use the tools or what we call tool time, then we've done our job. So I know we've got a long way to go, but we are very invested in this. This is a little cartoon that all UX people, I think, have. It's you know, the user describes a certain thing that they want. Marketing might hear something a little different. Maybe then what we put into the requirements again is different. This might be what got designed, and this might be what development builds, but this is actually what the user wanted. And so, you know, just talking for each different person, whether it's a marketing person or development or product management, talking to users, we all hear something a little bit differently. So if we can come together and watch you and, you know, do things or hear the whole story, you know, when we're all together, it really makes things better that you actually get what you want sooner and act more accurately. So let's say you do sign up. Then what? You know, what are the expectations? What are you supposed to do? The first thing is I like to keep a database of users and which products they use, what they do, what their title is, how long they've been in that role, that sort of thing, so that I have, when I do need to do a study, I've got a list of names to contact. I don't have a big database at the moment. Would love to have a bigger one so that I have a good set of users to pull from. We use the term personas, and that's really just sort of an archetype or a generic way to look at a group of users without fine-tuning it too much. We wanted to have it a little bit loose, but it's really, you know, maybe a title. So an application developer might be a persona, but there's also several different variations of it as well. There's, you know, the application developer who has been doing mainframe development for years and years. Maybe he's starting to think about retirement, but there's also the younger ones who are coming in who have who do a lot of maybe mobile application development on the side. They expect things to look a little different because that's what their experience is. You know, they might be used to using smartphones, or maybe the older one is still using the old clamshell phone. There's different ways of looking at this, and we like to think about that when we are trying to design around something, so that we make sure that each persona is cared for and designed around. Now, having said that, when I do have a usability study scheduled and I'm looking for people, that's where I start. I look for the persona that we've identified for that feature that we're testing. But sometimes I may not be able to find that that group of users. So I might have to open it up a bit and find the closest thing that I can to it. Recently, we did some usability studies in early May. We had an app dev conference here in Framingham, and there weren't any application developers at the conference, unfortunately. We had a lot of admins, so I used the admins for the usability study. I would love to do the same study with application developers. I just have not gotten any names yet that I can use. And I think that's okay. I think we still find information. We still clean things up a bit. But it's not 100% ideal, but I'd say it's probably, for the study that we did, I know that it's at least 80% accurate to use them. Once you decide, once you say that you're interested and we call you and you have some time available, I'll work with you to schedule your session. I will work around your schedule. And if it has to be after hours, then I'm fine with that. I've done that quite often. Most people usually are fine doing it during the day because it is work-related. I won't send you the tasks right away. I will do it the day before your session. I've had way too many times when people want to practice because they want to get it right, and that doesn't help me. And if that doesn't help me, then it doesn't help users in the long run. So I send it the day before and have you print it out, but I make sure to let you know that you should not be trying it out. and how much time will it take out of your day? It depends, and it depends on a lot of things. So one of the things it depends on is what we're trying to find out. I don't normally test the entire application or product in one study. I break it down into maybe features or more specific goals. So I have done usability studies that were as short as 2 minutes, and I've done some as long as 2 hours. I like to usually just do an hour. So what you see on the screen is just an example of what a schedule might be like. So this is a little more than an hour, but I always do a quick intro. It may be 2 minutes long at the most. There's 3 pre-test questions that I will ask. They're very quick. And then we get in and do we have you perform the task. I would say that part probably would be 45 minutes to an hour. Again, it depends. And then we might have some post-test questions. I do have the questions, whether we do it in person during the study or at the end of the study, or if I send them to you afterwards. That will depend on how much time we have available. And then I always like to do a quick debrief in case you, the participant, have questions or comments that are in addition to what we've already discussed. Or sometimes I will also open it up for the stakeholders, anybody who's on the phone observing, whether it's the Scrum team or product management or whatever, they might ask you some more probing questions to get more information about what they saw you do. It's not a training session, although it's possible that maybe a few tips and tricks come out at the end, but it's really us trying to find out what's working and what isn't working. This is just an example of a task that I've used before. This might be Endeavor, I don't remember now. You've been assigned to a project that requires you to change an existing business application that has mobile, server, and mainframe components. So I give a little context, and then I give the direction. What are the things that I want you to do? So this is locate the program or file and related assets in the SCM database for interrogation and determine if a modification is required. So that probably takes the user like a few minutes to do. And then have them determine if another developer is already working on the same program, obtain the program that requires the modification and place it somewhere so that you may modify them. These are just an example of a task that I've done, and this would have been like maybe task 1. And then I would have another task, and it depends on how long each one takes, maybe about 4 tasks. It's really very simple, and it's things that you hopefully do in your normal work day. So it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody on what to do, and it shouldn't be a scary thing. So how is this done? Depending on this development cycle, and depending on if you're in person or on WebEx, if you're in person and it's very early on and we're just have a concept, we might have a paper prototype, and that's what the picture is at the top of a paper prototype. And we might actually even have it working pieces to it. So somebody would actually be playing the part of the computer, and as you, the user, clicks on something with your finger or whatever, we would then put out the appropriate dialog box on paper or the next screen or whatever it is that the computer would normally do. We will do that very interactively with you, and it's really effective. Or we might have a high fidelity prototype, which would be a very nice wireframe or something like that we've done that maybe is actually interactive. It works very well via WebEx. The user can actually click on things and the next screen would appear. It almost feels like the actual application, but we don't code anything. We don't spend a lot of time on it. We don't want to spend too much time coding something and then testing it, because if we do, then the developers have a harder time wanting to make changes. So I like to use prototypes. We have a better chance of things changing. Of course, having said that, sometimes we do have to test with maybe the current build. Let's say we're on a new release cycle, and we might use the build that's out there right now from the previous release, and that can be fine too, and to figure out what to do for going forward. So the day of your session, hopefully you've printed out the tasks or have them online ready to go. You have the ability to sign into WebEx and you're all in there. If you have a webcam, we really like people to use that so we can see facial expressions. Sometimes it helps to see the person. You know, there are times if something's confusing, people tend to lean in to the computer. We'd like to see that, or maybe they just need to really read something and think it through. They tend to lean in. When they're feeling a little more confident, they lean back. They're just little things that we like to see. But it's not a requirement. If you don't feel comfortable with the webcam, I'm not going to force you to turn it on, that sort of thing. And some people don't have a webcam anyway. We do record the sessions, but I always ask for your approval. If you or your company is not comfortable with that, we won't record it. The reason why we like to record it, the first thing to know is it never goes outside the company. It's only for internal use. Specifically for me, I don't think anybody else hardly ever watches the recordings. I will probably watch them again, mostly because while I am working with you during the session, I can't take notes. I need to be focused on what you're doing. So I might go back afterwards and take notes on what I've seen and done, what you've done. And then I might also even use those recordings to create some highlight tapes to show, you know, a certain problem that maybe all users had. And if I can just show really quick each one in a row with that same problem, it's really effective to show the developers so that they get that sort of thing. There's probably other people on the phone. Now, I can never guarantee if they're going to or not, but I always invite the development team and product management and whoever I think might have an interest in what we're testing. I invite them, but they are not allowed to talk unless I ask them. I usually have one person designated as somebody who can help me if there's a technical thing that I might not understand because I'm not a developer. They're there to help answer those questions. When they do answer a question, they will be a little vague. They will try to just give out a little bit of information at a time, not a lot, because we want to try to figure out what are the words that turn the light bulb on, what gave you the information that you needed. So we try to go slowly with that, so just so you understand why that's happening that way. But please do not engage them in conversation. This does happen a lot, especially if you happen to know some of the people on the phone. But that sort of interrupts the flow of the usability study. So try to wait until the end, and I try to make sure that they wait until the end as well. Although, trust me, sometimes it's hard. They do like to talk. And then once you're done with the task, and if we have time to do the post-test questions, which is really just, you know, finding out on a scale of 1 to 7 how you liked it, or what are the top 3 things that you liked. Very easy questions. Your part is done, and we thank you, and you can hang up, and that's it. But our part is now just beginning. Now we've got to look at all the data from all the participants. Let's say I used 8 people for one study, and 8 people who did all the same tasks. Now we have to look at all the data from all those people and figure out, okay, so how does this all work together? What happened? What's the story that we can weave through here so that we know what needs to be fixed? So we talk about it, we work it through, we prioritize the issues, figure out what the biggest, if we could only fix 3 things, what are those top 3 things that we could fix based on what we saw, and everybody has a say in this sort of thing. And then the product owner adds the agile stories to the backlog, and it now becomes part of the things that the developers are going to work on. And then once we do work through that story and we make the change, I like to test it again just to make sure we were right. I've been doing this for 20 years, and let me tell you, we're not always right the first time, so we always try to test again. It's kind of like if you were writing a novel, your first draft is never what gets published. And it's the same thing with design. You have to iterate through it and fine-tune it as you go and keep testing it. this is an example, and this was from the AppDev conference in May when we did use 8 admins for the Endeavor Eclipse GUI study, and this is what I couldn't get a picture of the whole room. Every wall is covered with these big flip chart Post-its covered with smaller Post-its. And it's really us now, and it's all the observations. And what I do when we do Post-its is each person writes one observation per Post-it, and then we sort of affinitize them on the wall and try to find out what the common themes were or the groups. And that's sort of how we determine what needs to be changed or improved or stayed the same. And that's also how we prioritize them, because we vote on what we think is the best items to really improve the product. And so if you are interested in signing up, you could email me at susie.robson@ca.com. What I would need is some specific information, and maybe if you don't want to give it to me right away, but we can work through it. But what I would need is your name, your company name, your title, your contact information, which products you use, and how long you've used them, and if you've ever participated in a usability study before. And you can contact me at any time. Oops. And that's what I have. And if anybody has any questions, this would be a great time. So if we want to open it up, I think, Chris, can you see if anybody's had any questions or if anybody's written in the chat? So there were some things that I was thinking while I'm waiting to hear back. One of the questions you might have is how long between the time I contact you to participate in the usability study until the time that the study actually happens. And it might be a little lengthy, and I apologize in advance, but we need to set things up, we need to organize, we need to make sure we have everything. So it could be 2 weeks. Hopefully it's only less than a week, but sometimes it takes a while for us to work through writing the tasks, making sure that the tasks are correct and make sense. We might have to make sure that we have some dummy data available if we're using a prototype. We might want to make sure that the stakeholders that need to be there have time as well, and we need to work around your schedule as well. And not just your schedule, but all the participants. So I might have 8 people. I can't do all 8 in one day. So it might be spread out through a week or 2 weeks. So it's just a lengthy time. So I apologize, but it might take a few weeks. Are there any other questions? I think Len had to step away for a second. So if Chris, if you're there, if you want to open it up. It doesn't seem like there's any questions, so I'm going to say thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yep, if anybody has any questions, I'll post the recording online and they can always comment on the thread there.
That'd be great. That'd be great. I would love to talk more of it. I wasn't sure what people would be interested in hearing, so I would love to hear other questions, and then I can fine tune my deck as well.
Absolutely. All right, it looks like there's no questions, so I'll go ahead and get this recording posted in a little bit for you.
Okay, and thank you everybody for coming, and I hope that you would be interested in participating someday. And thanks, Chris. Thanks, Len.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.